Alright, so we've already covered the main campaign for Kirby Spectral Voyage. But, as we all know, Kirby games are always much more than just the campaign mode. They're always filled to the brim with sub-games and mini-games and even mini-campaigns. Without any of that, a Kirby game is incomplete, no matter how much content is in the campaign mode. Okay, that's a blatant over-exaggeration. Side content isn't that important if the campaign mode is fulfilling enough, but it is still a pretty big part of Kirby games. So, until I generate some ideas for side content in Kirby Spectral Voyage, there's still work to be done. So, let's get crack-a-lackin'. Oh wait, but first, I'm giving you to the count of 3 to subscribe. And if you don't, then I won't give this Waddle Dee a hug. 1, 2, 3. I'm gonna assume that you subscribed, because if you didn't, then you're crazy. As we all know, Kirby Spectral Voyage has a hub world in the form of the Lore Star Cutter. Of course, there has to be stuff to do in the hub world, and that stuff comes in the form of the copy-ability challenges and minigames, just like with the Star Cutter's previous appearance in Return to Dreamland. The copy-ability challenges are fundamentally very similar to how they were in that game. You get a copy ability, then you run through an obstacle course using that copy ability, trying to gain points by killing enemies and gaining star coins, while also losing points every time you take damage. Each ability challenge is unlocked after you buy the upgrade for the copy ability that the challenge is based around. It will cost a few star coins to attempt, but you win star coins if you get above a certain score. Then there's the mini-games. Most Kirby games have had a couple of them, but then Return to Dreamland Deluxe came out of the gate with like 10. So, to split the difference, especially since this game has the same hub world as Return to Dreamland, this game will have 6 mini-games. 4 returning games and 2 brand new ones. The returning ones will be Crackety Hack, Star Slam Heroes, Booming Blasters, and Smash Ride. The first new minigame will be a sword dueling game with 2 Kirbys, where you have to use the 4 face buttons to attack the other Kirby, and use the D-pad to block the attacks from the corresponding face buttons that the other Kirby presses. Every attack has a 1-second buffer and gives the other player a warning. Attacks and defends both have 1-second cooldowns. First person to hit the other Kirby 3 times wins. The second new minigame will be a Ranger ability-based game, where you have to hit a bunch of targets as many times as possible within 10 seconds. As I said in the last video, on the world map you'll find occasional mini-levels that are basically the treasure roads from Forgotten Land, but based around getting as many star coins as possible instead of rare stones. There will be 3 different types of star coin levels. The first type will be maze-based, a lot of locked doors, and a lot of keys lying around. Finding your way out of the maze within the time limit will give you a chest with a crap ton of star coins, and there will also be rooms with generally a lot of star coins in them in the maze. The second type of star coin level will be a defense-based level, similarly to those in Magolor Epilogue. There is a containment unit with a lot of coins inside of it, and you'll have to defend the containment unit from a lot of enemies for a certain amount of time so that you can get the chest with the coins inside of the containment unit. Every enemy you defeat also nets you a few star coins. The third type of star coin level will feature a fast PD carrying the star coin chest and running away from Kirby constantly, and you have to catch him within a time limit to get the chest. There's also lots of star coins lying around if you want to go out of your way to get them. Okay, now here's the actual side content stuff. The hub world and world map stuff doesn't even technically count as side content, I don't think. I just didn't include it in the main pitch video, and I thought this would be a good place to do it. Outside of the main campaign mode, the main menu will feature 4 other sub-games for you to choose from. The Arena, Extra Mode, Dreamland Invasion, and the True Arena. Let's start with the Arena. It's a boss rush mode, as you would always expect from the arena modes in Kirby. You fight a bunch of bosses and mini-bosses from the main game in a row, with the only way to heal in between being by eating part of your limited food supply, and you also have a limited selection of copy abilities before each fight. Now for a bigger sub-game, Extra Mode. This game's Extra Mode functions very similarly to the Extra Mode in Return to Dreamland. It's a harder version of the main game, with stronger enemies, bigger enemies, deadlier environmental hazards, and EX forms of all the main bosses. One thing that won't carry over from the Extra Mode in Return to Dreamland is having a smaller health bar, as I felt that lessening the amount of health you have was kinda going overboard in the difficulty department. Instead of less health, just increase the difficulty of all enemies even more. In the second phase of the final fight of Extra Mode, Void Kerbina will be replaced by Void Soul. Instead of having the eyeball shields that Void Kerbina had, Void Soul will instead have an entire 4 health bars instead of the 2 health bars that Void Kerbina had. After you handle Void Soul, the same old scene where Void crashes into the Star Cutter and everybody lands back in Dreamland happens. Except this time, instead of crashing into the crates full of invincibility candies like in the main game, Kirby instead crashes into a crate with a sword in it. Kirby picks up the sword and points it at an unarmed Kirby, urging him to surrender. But then... in order to make Morpho Knight's appearance in this game more interesting, Kirby has inhaled the butterfly form of this God Eater. Now he has a sword of his own, and it's now time for the third phase of this fight. Exclusive to Extra Mode, Morpho Kirby. The first half of this fight is a grounded sword duel between puffballs, but after you take out half his health, Kirby starts to use his Morpho wings to fly around. He also starts using some minor level void attacks and some special Morpho Knight attacks. Once Morpho Knight's health bar is depleted, he actually spits the butterfly back out, before falling unconscious. After being spat out, the butterfly lands on Kirby and absorbs him. He doesn't use Kirby to turn into Morpho Knight though, since he's had enough excitement for one day. Instead, the butterfly just casually flies away. And this means you've successfully beaten Extra Mode! Congratulations! Next up is the Dreamland Invasion subgame. Now, many times in the past, Kirby has had what-if modes where someone other than Kirby goes on the main adventure, and Kirby has also had post-game game modes in the past. But as far as I'm aware, this will be the very first Meanwhile mode. In Dreamland Invasion, you play as King Dedede during the Doomer invasion of Dreamland, and it's your job to fend off the Doomers. This game mode's levels are revamped versions of the Dreamland levels in the main game, with some new levels like the Halberd. This game mode has 4-player multiplayer, with player 2 being Meta Knight, player 3 being Bandana D, and player 4 being another Wildie who wields a whip. This new Whip Wildie will instantly become a serious fan favorite. The final boss of this game mode will be the Grand Doomer, except this time you get to fight him from the ground instead of from your ship like the Grand Doomer fight in the main game. However, once you defeat the Grand Doomer, in his dying breath he opens several more interdimensional portals, which brings a crap ton more Doomers to Dreamland. This is where the game mode ends. Images in the credits show Dreamland being completely overtaken, with Dedede being chained up in Castle Dedede, which leads into its overtaken state when Kirby finally makes it back to Dreamland in Spectral Voyage's main campaign. Finally, the last new game mode, the True Arena. Mainstay Kirby fans know damn well what the True Arena is. It's a much harder boss rush where you fight against the EX forms of each of the bosses from Extra Mode instead of the normal bosses, along with some of the bosses from Dreamland Invasion, ending off with the battles against Void Kirby, Void Kerbina, Void Soul, and Morpho Kirby. Since it uses bosses from so many different modes, the True Arena will only be unlocked once you've beaten the main campaign mode, Extra Mode, Dreamland Invasion, and the normal arena. And that is all the side content for Kirby Spectral Voyage. All this plus the main game stuff I dreamed up in the last video should hopefully generate a half-decent Kirby game. Which, of course, HAL Laboratories will never make because they're afraid enough to not plagiarize from some random teenager's YouTube video. But if they would like to hire me at some point, I would be honored, except I don't live in Japan. Well, whatever, I'm hoping that these videos will help me get hired by some game studio in the future. Anyway, bye.